We've been talking about how we can have selective hearing on things that we do want to hear, and we can have selective hearing on things we don't want to hear, which is also just real important. Sometimes we've got it's real important sometimes just to have selective hearing of saying, I'm not going to hear that stuff. I'm not going to pay attention. I'm not going to give it significance. Okay? That's huge. We've talked about the blockages, about what we believe, our past, and that sometimes literally we're trying to hear God, but we literally have blockages in our ears that we can't. But it's always important to remember that He's always speaking to us. He's always guiding us. He's always communicating to us, and He does it in so many ways, as we all know. I think it's important to acknowledge, sometimes that even a billboard God will use a movie, a scene, a phrase, a friend, a text, a letter, just thoughts. The Word of God all the time is speaking to us. He absolutely, as we sang today, He absolutely wants to know us. He absolutely wants to be a companion to us. I think about when we sing that song, or just think about the cross, how God did everything He could to have a relationship with us. And then sometimes we think, oh, He doesn't want to know me. And it's like, yeah, he did everything He could to get to know us. He's doing everything He can to get to know everybody. It's important to believe all those things. But even believing those things, we still have blockages. I remember in my early days, this was one of my main quests. The Lord actually spoke to me in Bible college and said, one of my original Bibles, I had it written down for years. I don't even know where that Bible is right now. He just said, if you can learn to listen to me, I can talk you through every other situation that you're going to face in life. If you learn just about how to get healing, then you're going to be good at that. You learn about how to be good in finance, you're going to learn that. If you learn how to preach, you're going to learn. But he said, if you can learn to listen to me, then I can help you in every situation. He said, make it your main focus to learn how to listen to me. So I was bearing down on that, and I was so on fire and all that, and I don't share this one very publicly, but I actually thought I was supposed to marry somebody else besides Lisa. Lisa was my good friend. She was actually dating one of my best friends, and so we were friends, but other than that, and I literally thought that God spoke to me that I was supposed to marry this gal. And I wasn't like saying, oh, I really like her, can I marry her? I just thought He did. And I went through about a year of, I'll just say it was really an emotional year and really a wreck. And didn't end up well. And for a while there, that really hindered my ability to hear, because I was scared to hear anything. I said, I missed it. I did it with all my heart. I did it with any self-motive or whatever else. And so I had to really stir myself up and stay in the Word of God, and somewhat I had to just say, I don't know what happened there. If I never figured it out, that's okay. I'm going to go with Jesus. You ever been there? Where you say, I don't really know what happened, I don't know, but I'm not leaving. Jesus said to His disciples once, do you guys want to go to it? And they said, where do we go? And that's where I was. I didn't know where else to go. I'm going to stick with Jesus. But I didn't know what happened in that situation. I really didn't. And it affected me and my confidence. We kept going. So today I want to just share, we did share this phrase last week, or a couple weeks ago. I guess I was gone last week. The only difference between basic and advanced is how well you do the basics repetitively. That was Vince Lombardi. And I love that. It's it's just like piano playing. It's just like sports. It's just like anything. If you get the basics down and you do them repetitively, you're going to look like you're an expert. You're going to really look like an advanced person that really knows their stuff, but it's just knowing the basics and doing them. So today I want to just talk a little bit about set yourself up for victory by establishing your heart in your faith and your persuasion. So if you have your Bibles, let's turn to Deuteronomy. We're going to go to the Old Testament this morning. What to do when you hear the Lord. What to do when you do hear the Lord. We've been talking about hearing Him and listening to Him and building our faith. And part of it is this: the more we talk about it, the more we're going to get more persuaded about it and more aware we're going to get aware of it. So Deuteronomy, what I say, 11,
8 and 9 says this, "You shall therefore keep every commandment which I'm commanding you today, so that you may be strong and go in and possess the land into which you are about to cross to possess it, so that you may prolong your days on the land which the Lord swore to your fathers to give to them and to their descendants, a land flowing with milk and honey." So God said, he says, you're to keep every commandment or every instruction. In other words, what you do hear me tell you, keep it, watch it, don't forget about it, and do it. And that walk will take you in strong to possess what God has for you. We drop down then to verses 18 and 19, and he says it again. He says, You shall therefore impress these words of mine on your heart and on your soul. And you shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontals on your forehead. And you shall teach them to your sons, talking of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk along the road, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. So one of the things God was instructing his people way back then is, once you hear me, once you know my instructions, then you have a responsibility and an ability to keep those things in front of you and to remember them. You know, isn't it amazing how really important data can be forgotten? This last week or last 2 or 3 weeks, it's pretty important to keep your credit cards with you. Not leave them laying around. Wouldn't you say? You know, I've left my credit card in 2 restaurants in the last 3 weeks. I don't know what's up with that. That hardly ever happens. And all of a sudden I go to the next place, and it may be the next day, and I go to get my credit card, and it's not there. And I go, ugh. And you got the big question. Did I leave it someplace? Did somebody get it? Has somebody already used it? Where did I leave it? I don't know why, but I forget a lot of things. But usually once I pull it out, I can go back and say, I know where it's at. It's at that restaurant. And so far, they've been really good to take it, put it in a safe, and wait for me to show up with my identification. No matter how important it is, you can forget. And when God speaks to us, something in our heart, through the Word of God, through any means that he wants to, we still have to, as humans, have to do something to keep reminding ourselves, or we'll forget. You just think that a supernatural God could just zap you and you'd never forget, but that's not the way this works. It's a communication and process. But he talks about that if you do remember and you do impress them. And one of the things that really does help is this verse right here has been, to me, verse 19, you shall teach them to your sons, talking of them when you sit down and when you're in the house and when you walk along the road and when you lie down. And being raised on a farm, I know Marty and I, we'd be in the pickup with Dad, and we'd be going down the road, and all of a sudden we'd see another neighbor, and so the 2 pickups would pull off, and Marty and I would just take a deep breath and go, here we go again. And I tell you, when 2 farmers come together on the road, you may be there a while. Man, they can make fun of the women, but they love to talk. And they love to talk about farming. And I remember them talking about sheep and talking about cows and talking about farming. And it's like, man, I remember sitting there thinking, you guys, you've been doing this forever. And you're still talking about, well, what are you going to plant this year? And how are you going to do that? And what happened to you? Yeah, my sheep got sick too. Yeah. And I just thought, you guys go. It's the same every year. Of course, I don't want to get into golf because that's even more sickening. How people talk about their swings and all that. But as the years went by, I really did think, I thought, man, they're lonely or something. They just want to talk. And of course, we couldn't go home and ride motorcycles or whatever when that was happening. But as years went by, I finally realized, man, those weren't just social meetings. Those were meetings that actually helped them farm, because everybody has a tendency to forget and everybody that learns something doesn't, sometimes you pick up from them. What I found is if you're really into something, you talk about it. And you talk about when you're walking, and you talk about when you sit down, and you talk about when you're having coffee with people. And forgive me, but I tell you, I had a total change in my life of realizing how important that is. And I began in my life to try to be very conscious to talk about important things when I'm with my family or I'm with anybody, and with my grandkids. There's times that just, some of you drive quite a ways to get here, and we have other people saying, well, I'm thinking about, switching churches, and that's fine because it's not a less drive. But can I say that even though it was agonizing to drive from Vail 2 or 3 times a day, because we had services Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, and we'd be driving back and forth with our kids, and it was wearing on us. But I can also say when we stopped doing it, we had a big hole in our communication, because that half-hour drive to and from church produced some of the greatest conversations my family's ever had. After the sermon, after whatever the kids learned, we could go home, and in that car, we were all locked in there. We're all, it's not that easy to have conversations with your kids, is it? And those opportunities, I'm telling you, it is valuable. Sometimes the trips that we take with the school or take with the church or take overseas or even to Sioux Falls for Elise and I, for my family, for you guys, I tell you, some of those, the trip is awesome, but the traveling to and fro and the conversations you get, I found are the most valuable things in trips. You almost just need an excuse to go to Denver so you can drive and get some time in conversation. And this is one of the things. Once you hear from God, make a conscious effort to talk about it. Talk to somebody else about it. Bring it up. Don't think, well, they'll just think I'm over-spiritual or something. Just forget all that stuff. Just talk about it. Talk and share about it, because it'll help embed it into your heart. Let's go to Joshua 24. Well, let's back up. Let's go to Deuteronomy 28 one more time. In Deuteronomy 28, verses 1 and 2 says, Now it shall be, if you will diligently obey the Lord your God, being careful to do his commandments, which I command you today, the Lord God will set you high above all the nations, and all these blessings shall come upon you and overtake you if you will obey the Lord your God. When the Bible says obey, both in the Old Testament and New Testament, that word means to listen to the voice of God. So when we say we want to hear God, we're not just talking about hearing with these ears. We're literally talking about when the Word of God, the thoughts, the ideas of God come into our ears or through our eyes from reading or whatever and enter our heart. But even that, when you say, have you ever asked somebody, well, did you hear me? And they can repeat it back. We used to have a kid in our youth group that could just be spinning cartwheels the whole time I was talking, man. He'd be on his head and flipping around. He had ADHD, off the charts and whatever else, and I could just, oh man, the kids would get so distracted watching him. And every time I could say, Todd, what did I just say? And every time he could sit up and repeat me, quote me just exactly. And I go, he said, I'm listening. I said, I know, but you're not helping anybody else listen. He ended up being a preacher. He's a pastor now in Iowa. Pretty awesome. But when the Bible talks about hearing, it's not just talking about being able to hear it and repeat it. It literally means the whole process of not only taking that thought or idea in, but acting on it and start doing it. It's really not hearing until you're doing it. I mean, it's a word that we just don't really have in our vernacular. But so that's why sometimes it's translated hearing, and sometimes it's translated obedience, because it means that. It means you actually heard enough and got persuaded enough to go act on it. And he just said, if you will obey, the word used there in Deuteronomy 28, it's used twice, if you will diligently obey, if you will obey, all these blessings will overtake you. Now, let's go to now to Joshua 4:24. And verses 14 and 15. Joshua's coming to the end, gathers up everybody, and says this. Kind of a familiar verse. Now therefore, fear the Lord and serve him in sincerity and truth, and put away the gods which your fathers served beyond the river and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. And if it is disagreeable in your sight to serve the Lord. What a statement. And if it's disagreeable in your sight to serve the Lord, then choose yourself today whom you will serve, whether it's the gods of your fathers, which served beyond the river and etc., the Amorites and all that. But that statement right there I want to come back to. And if it is disagreeable in your sight to serve the Lord. You know, it can be disagreeable in your heart to serve the Lord. There's times I've had to obey my bosses, my dad, the law, the government, and frankly, it's disagreeable to me. I don't agree with it. And that same attitude anybody can have. This is amazing that God could actually speak to somebody and say, "This, I want to bless you, I want to know you, and here's my instruction to you," and then somebody can say, "I don't want to. I don't want to." But you have to. No, I don't have to. And literally what's cool about this is you and I may tell our kids they have to. You and I may tell somebody they have to. You and I may say, "Listen, you're gonna end up in the jail, you're gonna end up dead or whatever else if you don't do this." Well, it might be true, but they still don't have to. If it's disagreeable to them, they don't have to. And God will back him up. I mean, he's not going to manipulate them, you know. So you and I might as well take a deep breath once in a while and just say, not everybody's going to want to serve the Lord. Not everybody's going to want to do what's right. And there will be consequences. And we might as well be there when they have consequences happen, because maybe they'll change their opinion. Don't write people off. Ma'am, at least now she's been listening to some other preachers, and one guy down south is incredible story how some sons just go the wrong direction, man, just go haywire. Well, they can't do that. They were raised in the church and they got a good dad. Well, no, they can't do that. It's if you want to be disagreeable, you can be. But here on the other side, let's just go to the other side of that. Man. And if it is disagreeable in your sight to serve the Lord, what if it's agreeable to you to serve the Lord? I mean, if you can have a disagreeable attitude, you can have an agreeable attitude. What an awesome thing to say, man, I have an agreeable attitude. It is my will to serve the Lord. That's you and me. That's why we're here. We have an agreeable attitude. We want to serve the Lord. That's what we want to do. Are we going to make mistakes? Yep. Are we going to misunderstand things? Yep. Are we sometimes going to forget really important stuff? Yep. But we don't have an attitude that's disagreeable to serve the Lord. We want to agree. We want to. Now, there's a lot of degrees. You can have a really disagreeable attitude. And I find it amazing when you can look at a child and before you even ask, they go, no. I mean, isn't it amazing? You didn't even say anything. They just look at your body language and they know you're going to say something. And it doesn't matter what you're going to say. It's no. Especially when it comes to our house and eating things. Do you want? No. Some of my grandkids, they'll say no. So I like to flip it up once in a while and then bring out a candy bar, and they're just in that mode of saying no, and they say no, and I said, oh, yeah, no, I'll take that. I said, no, too late. But on the other side, you can have great energy, you can have a slightly good attitude, or you can have a phenomenal attitude of saying, man, I'm agreeable to serve the Lord. I want to serve the Lord. I want to do it. You know what I think we get confused on? I think sometimes we're not too enthusiastic or whatever, too quick, because it's not that we don't want to serve the Lord, man. If it's this thing, I'm just not sure what he's saying. Especially if we're talking to somebody else. They say, well, what are you going to do? You're going to do that? And it's like, listen, if I knew for sure, how many of you, if you knew for sure, absolute 100%, that God was asking you to do something, even though it might be uncomfortable for you, even though it might be scary for you, even though it might, if you knew for sure it was him, would it not be pretty easy to do that if you just knew for sure? And I think sometimes we get confused that our hesitation might be disobedience or disagreeableness, and it's not. It's just we're not sure. We're just not that sure. Pretty sure, but not that sure. And so often we share our testimony and say, well, the Lord told me to do it and I didn't do it. And I think, yeah, but give yourself a break. Maybe now looking back you're really persuaded, but maybe back then you weren't that persuaded. I don't know. I want to tell you that let yourself enjoy and stay humble, but stay kind of proud that you have a heart to serve God. Say, I want to serve you. You know, I've shared this story before, but as Fritz Wolf was having his 70th birthday party, and Fritz had some pretty influential friends and people that made a lot of money and people done a lot of things, and they invited me to the party, and I was a little bit just like, oh my, frankly, I was just like a little intimidated about all the people that are going to be there and all that, you know. They had this air of being people that done things, you know. And so on the way there, I was just praying. I said, man, I feel so awkward going to this thing. I don't know if I'm going to know anybody. And, you know, have you ever felt that way going to something? Like, what's going to be like when I walk through that door? A lot of us just don't go places because we don't want that feeling. Anyway, so I was wrestling with that. And you know me, I go a lot and get a lot of people. But anyway, I just said, God, I don't like this feeling. And so I just said, I got to get out of this. And I said, this thought came to me. I just said, God, I want to give him something special. I don't know if I had a card or gift. I don't think so, but I might have. But I said, I want to give him something special. That I got a gut feeling I'm going to get to say something at this meeting. And so I'd like to give him something special. I'm not the greatest gift giver. I'm not. I love to give gifts, but I'm not that observant. I can't tell you what you like to eat. I may eat out with you 1,000 times and never know what you really like. I don't know. I'm just not that aware. But I like to give things that are somewhat special, if I can. And I heard the voice of the Lord tell me. He says, say this. And so I got there, and sure enough, I had opportunity to say something. Came my turn to say it, and I said, I love this man, however I went through it, and I said, and here's what I think is awesome about Fritz Wolf. For him, his heart is so tuned in to be agreeable with God that God's slightest whisper is his command. And he does it with all his heart. Man, however I said it, it went, whew. It was awesome. It was a great word. Later, Fritz came to me in tears and said, that ain't true. He said, I'm not that good. I'm a really greedy guy. There's times I think I did. And I said, no, Fritz, that's just all the confusion again, but your heart is right there. But that stuck in me. What a wonderful picture, isn't it, to say, man, God's slightest little whisper is my command. I remember trying to serve my dad that way. Dad didn't say much, but but sometimes Marty and I had to read his body language constantly. And literally to this day, when I work with my dad, it's still amazing. I can usually figure out what he's going to do, what he wants done. And it's almost embarrassing because we won't even talk, but we work like a symphony. If somebody's there watching, they probably say, you guys are really not that friendly to each other. But man, to this day, I get in the pole barn with my dad, and I'm anticipating his next move. And he'll By the time he turns around, I have a wrench stuck in his hand. By the way, he still runs the wrench. He still does his own stuff. What an attitude to have. To be agreeable with God's will. Just say, man, God, that's what I want. Nobody loves me more than you do. Nobody knows as much as you do. I just want to do your will. You know, with all the confusion we can have in this life, and I was just talking to Mark Wheeler, Mark and Janine are here. It's amazing. Somebody asked me the other day, what's your 10-year plan? I wanted to come up with some smart answer, but I just sat there. I'm going to serve the Lord. That's all I really know. I'm going to do my best to do whatever. I can't figure out where this place is going. I can't figure out what's going on in the world. I'm looking at trends. I'm listening to experts a little bit, and it's like, man, it's so varied. It's so different. Everything that can be shaken is shaking. I think we could be going into one of the greatest eras of the whole world's history. And then the next moment, I think it could be total collapse. I don't know. I know this. I want to serve the Lord. I want to obey him whatever he asks me to do. I really don't have a clear direction on a lot of things right now. Step by step, he's given us direction a lot. We're looking at a lot of different things right now in so many ways. But I just think having that, like I shared 2 weeks ago, just having that heart that says, I'm willing. God, whatever you ask me to do, I'm willing. I trust you. You're not going to ask me to do something that you won't grace me for. You know, a lot of people say, God's always going to ask you to get out of your comfort zone. And one day the Lord said to me, he says, why don't you stay in the comfort zone? And I thought, is this reverse psychology, or what are you doing to me? He said this. He just said, I sent the Holy Spirit to be the what? Comforter. Stay in the comfort zone. Stay in the zone where the comforter is. And also, I had a different attitude. I was saying, man, you're not just trying to torment me. You're not just trying to get me to jump out of some boat and sink, you know. You're trying to get me to stay in the comfort zone. But in that comfort zone, man, when you're with the Holy Spirit, he can ask you to do anything, and you'll have the grace to do it. You have the ability. You have the peace of mind. Man, I don't know, just different perspectives, but I just see that the Lord is so good to us. His goodness is so great. And the only reason he's saying listen and obey is because that's how this whole thing works to get you blessed. My son was talking to me yesterday, and he said, Dad, I'm seeing a little different side of faith. Faith isn't just for you to have something that actually gets you something else. Faith is what you have in a relationship with God that takes you through everything. It's not always the way you want it. It takes you through. And I thought that's really good. Praise God. How many of you want to hear God? How many got a willingness to obey him? Don't be ashamed to say it. You don't have to brag it to everybody else, but boy, in your own prayer time, just tell him. Just say to yourself, I want to serve the Lord. I'm willing. I will have to get persuaded totally that it's him. That's wisdom, by the way, folks. Having somebody, threaten you like, if you really love the Lord, you do that. Don't listen to that stuff. Well, you can't go on that. You need to don't let anybody else pressure you. Don't let some preachers preaching make you feel like you're disobedient. This is between you and God. It may be something that you know you will do, but you might not know the timing of it.